Go live here, but have you ever done that the 75-day challenge, the 75 hard? Is that
Yes.
right? Because that's where you drink a gallon, I think, of water a day.
Gallon of water a day. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. All
That
right,
was
that's it.
actually the easy part for me.
What's that?
I said that was actually the easy part for me. The harder part was actually the workout stuff consistently
The
every
2
day.
workouts a day,
Yeah.
the staying on a diet,
Yep.
the reading 10 page. Yeah, the whole thing.
Mm.
Housekeepers podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Housekeepers podcast. Dare I say, the cleanest hour in podcasting. Today's episode of the Housekeepers podcast is brought to you by the Housekeeping Leadership Academy. If you are a housekeeping manager, if you're being promoted into a housekeeping leadership position, or if you employ housekeeping managers, EVS directors, facility directors, don't go it alone. Don't just offer on-the-job training. The failure rate for on-the-job training for housekeeping managers is way too high. Way too high. Listen, you're promoting them because you believe in them. Provide them some education. Go to housekeepingleadershipacademy.com. That's where I would go if I were you. Brandon. Brandon Vaughn, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Ralph. Good to be here, man.
It's so good to connect with you. We were supposed to do this way back in December, like 2 months ago.
It's like
And
we've been busy or something. I don't know.
Well,
your personal assistant, kept having your people get in touch with my people, and finally all the stars aligned, and here we are.
I'm super excited. I'm very happy because I'm excited because of all the great things that you're doing now, and I really want to. First of all, I really need to get to the bottom of this. Did you complete the 75 hard challenge? Here we go. That's a no. All right.
I was hoping you were going to go into that. Yeah. No, I failed. I did. I
Yeah.
failed. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so did I. I have. I'm gonna brag a little bit. I have failed about 8 times now. So, and although that is a stupid brag, it means that I'm still trying, right? Like I'm still trying.
And you're being honest too.
Yeah.
I think that what I call it now is I call it the 365 sustainable program.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
the one that I'm on right now. My wife always gives me a hard time every time I want to jump into something, do these little sprints of things. She's like, why don't you just stick with the program that you can just do forever? I'm like, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
after I failed that one, I had the flu and was throwing up and still trying to do it. And I totally bagged out. So I'm trying the 365 sustainable program right now.
Yeah, that's good. I'm a big fan of Andy's. I'm a big fan of the 75 hard. And I'm a big fan of the 75 hard for one reason, because it's a mental toughness game.
It's true. Yeah.
It's all it means nothing. It's not about losing weight. It's not about working out. It's not about reading. Do you have the mental toughness?
Yeah, I like those challenges. I like the challenge side of it. And honestly, the funny thing is we did it during the summertime, and my family said that it was the most time that we ever spent together outdoors because we went on family walks all the time. So they actually loved it. And then when the weather turned bad, then it just became a grind for me. And then they were like, you don't have to do this to yourself. And then when I got sick, it was like game over. But yeah, it was a fantastic venture into just being outdoors more. That was my favorite part of it, to be honest.
I love that so much. Those unintended consequences of family time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was good.
I remember taking family trips as a kid, but not like Disney World. It was more like going to see Aunt Janice, those kind of trips. And they would be hours in the car, which we all hated, but they're some of our best stories, our best memories,
Yeah. It's funny how it works out that way, isn't it?
I know. If you don't know what we're talking about, Google 75 hard challenge. It is a grueling undertaking, but one that's worthy of doing, I imagine. I haven't done it yet. I keep trying. 8 times. There we go.
Here's number 9. Here we go.
Here's number 9. What's funny too is I have such a schedule that I'm pretty much attached to, that I kind of do automatically, from the morning till night, that it's almost like a little bit of a disruption of my schedule, which shouldn't be that big of a deal, but that's what gets me off kilter. I don't have I guess if I wasn't so structured already, it'd be nice to have I'm going to have some structure, but I'm the opposite. I perhaps have too much.
There's some business lessons in here. The 75 hard, kind of this sprint challenge, mentality. There's a really good book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called The Consistency Chain. And it's by these two authors that just talk about like, daily goal setting and not having such a big, hairy, audacious goal. Like I have to do this every day for so long, but, rather like, these daily wins. It's really cool because there's like the two different schools of thoughts, and some people really resound with, the challenge side of it. And other people really resound with just like the daily action kind of a thing. If you haven't checked it out, Consistency Chain, it's a really cool book.
It sounds really good. Did you watch football over the weekend?
I didn't know. No,
we're just talking shop here, but one of the fun things about watching football, if you're paying attention to the commentators, is that they always try to find something positive to say about the coaches and the team and the quarterbacks, and they sometimes have to get super creative. Like I heard somebody, and this was a couple of weeks ago, somebody said like, this coach hasn't won in like this temperature in 15, like in this temperature, like or haven't lost when it's this temperature. Yeah. Like how deep you had to go to put
behind that. That's good. I like that.
They haven't lost since they've worn this color jersey.
Right.
And like they're putting a positive spin on like the most lamest thing. And it was too funny. So that's a great point. Trying to be consistent and not be so enjoying those little wins.
Mm-hmm.
Very smart. All right, Brandon Vaughn. I love to hear about what you're doing now. But before we do, of course, I want to go all back to the beginning. You're in Oregon now. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah. Actually was born at home in Wood Village, Oregon. It's a little tiny town just outside Portland, and born in the bathtub at home. Too much information? Probably, but there it is. And
I was going to ask if you meant at home, meant legit midwife.
Legitimately. Yes. Yeah. My mom had me at home. So I was born in Wood Village and have pretty much stayed put ever since, and now live 10 minutes away from my original birth house. So yeah, native Oregonian.
Are you an only child?
No, I'm actually the youngest out of 5. So
have all of them, were all of them born in that same bathtub? Is this a you see what I did there? I focused on the one thing.
I know. I was like, I probably shouldn't share that. Yeah, so it was I think 3 out of the 5 were. My parents had 4 kids, 3 daughters, and then a boy. And then my dad was like, well, got the boy, we're done. And then I was 8 years later. Oops. So like there's 5 of us total, but I almost kind of have like a whole different growing up experience. Not quite the baby of the family, not quite like the oldest. So it was that gap. Actually all of my siblings had moved out by the time I was like, 7. They moved out early. So it was pretty early.
Wow. So you're almost like an only kid, really.
Yeah. In a lot of ways. Yeah. A lot of ways it kind of was. But my dad was he was a window cleaner, started a window cleaning company in 1978. And so he actually worked all 5 of us kids in that business over those, 30 some years. So it's kind of cool. We all had that connection to it though, which is neat.
What kind of window cleaning are we talking about here? Like skyscraper window cleaning or, store to store, front display case?
Yeah, it was a little bit of that, a little bit of storefront, but mostly residential work. So, every 6 months, cadence, quarterly, that type of a deal. Interior and exterior residential window cleaning was most of the bread and butter that he had.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. You can make money cleaning windows in a residential area?
Yeah, actually.
I'm going to write this down. I get more business ideas out of this podcast. I got to tell you, that's really fantastic.
Yeah. So he was owner operator window cleaner. And that was literally my whole childhood growing up was my dad, the window cleaner. And he had never more than one single employee working from the business, usually as a helper. And he'd either work 4 days a week or 5 days a week, owner operator. And I actually homeschooled through high school. So and the reason why I homeschooled was twofold. One of them was because I didn't do so great in school. So like my parents had to kind of control it. The second part was I could work full time in the business with my dad. So I actually worked 40 hours a week with my dad from age of 13 while homeschooling through high school. and kind of picked up that window cleaning trade. So it was me and my dad in a van going around 4 or 5 days a week and washing windows for residential customers and some commercial stuff too. But yeah, largely residential.
What did your mom do?
She was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So she, of course, well, when I wasn't there, she was just, she kind of did stuff, was involved with church and, other types of social things. Make sure that she was the house CEO, put it that way.
No question.
So,
That's
really important. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you were working full time at 13, did you play sports? Did you get into any kind of academic, extra anything?
Not
I feel like I'm hearing a terrible story here.
No, actually it was incredible. I feel extremely blessed to kind of have the life that I did. So, we were involved in lots of other social circles. So I wasn't socially stunted on that side. The other thing was because they're all residential customers, like literally my day in and day out was talking to customers and getting to know these, nice little old ladies and different families, and would literally be 14 years old and they'd have a 14-year-old kid at home and we'd be like talking while I'm like sitting there working and stuff. So social interaction was still quite a bit there. But just kind of learn the value of hard work. And
yeah, but you didn't play any basketball, you didn't play football, baseball.
You need to understand something. I was the scrawny kid that got like stuffed into the locker type of a thing.
Those kids are needed on the field.
Yeah, as cannon fodder. So it's
a valuable position.
Yeah. No, I suffered. I mean, not really suffered, but I've had ADD pretty bad my whole life. I kind of view it as like a superpower now with kind of what I'm able to accomplish in certain areas, and kind of have harnessed some of the good parts and then found ways to kind of like manage some of the more negative parts, like wearing shock watches and other types of really cool gadgets that are probably a little bit overkill for my condition. But I was involved in skiing. I did skied regularly. I did like to play football. It's terrible at basketball. But never did anything like, in the, like the secular sports arena at school. But that's okay. I loved what we did. We lived in a cul-de-sac. So every single day after school, we were out playing baseball in the cul-de-sac and, everything else, riding bikes and stuff. So had a good social neighborhood too, with lots of kids my age.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I just can't imagine. I mean, I remember being 13. I don't know, being stuck in a van with my dad at 13. I don't know. I wouldn't have been super happy about it. I mean, was it always just like, yes, this is the best, or was there a little bit of dragging your heels?
When
nobody's gonna listen to this.
When my dad paid me 5 cents a screen to clean screens, it was definitely a grind. But as I got a little bit older, like 14, 15, my dad started to pay me actually very well. He was extremely generous. So I'd make like a percentage of like 25% for the day. And we do sometimes, anywhere from $800 to $1,300 a day with just the two of us in a van. And this is like, 20 plus years ago. And so I was making great money. So, I was able to buy my own car at 16. I was able to buy my first house at 18. Wow. And, it taught me a lot of value of, just stewardship of money and making sure that, I was saving properly. Also did lots of really terrible, dumb decisions too, like investing tens of thousands of dollars into cars that, was a terrible waste of money. But no, I had an incredible childhood. I really did. I mean, there's of course all kinds of ways that you could say I wish it could have gone, but
sure.
Really cool to be around a business owner like that.
Did you ever work for anybody other than your dad? Have you ever had another job before that? Like in your high school years, did you pick up working at McDonald's or anything like that?
So the day I turned 18, I went out and got my business license as soon as I possibly could. And I called it Shiny Night Window Service. And that was like, I was going to go do my own thing. That was twofold. One of the reasons was because I wanted to kind of go do my side jobs. Two is because my dad didn't want to pay me as an employee anymore. He wanted to pay me as a subcontractor, 1099. So there was a little bit of that motivation there too.
What was your side jobs? What side jobs? What are you talking about?
Yeah. All the jobs my dad didn't want to do.
Oh, right.
I did that. I did some little property maintenance. I sold Cutco knives for a short period of time. And
all right, door to door or like at a fair?
Yeah, door to door, and
all right.
sold the pants off of Cutco knives for a little while.
How'd you get into that? How does one even find that?
Oh man,
nobody's ever come to me and said, "Hey, do you want to sell Cutco knives?"
I'm trying to remember. It might have been, I might have answered an ad in the newspaper where it was talking about, do you want to make, and of course the numbers they tell you like what you could make were just like ridiculous. And they're like, oh, come down to this thing. And I came down there and totally bought into the system. They totally sold a ton of knives. And then really soon, I think I realized like, I don't want to be a knife salesman for the rest of my life. And then I like went and started a construction business and just totally tanked that company. And
what kind of construction were you looking at doing?
So I was doing finished carpentry, custom tile work, and just kind of like general remodeling. And
was your dad doing this stuff? Like, how do you learn this stuff?
I've always been very autodidactic, self-learner, hands-on, watch YouTube, figure things out.
You had YouTube when you were 18?
Now that's a good question.
Ahead. Just
that's a good question.
I didn't get YouTube till I was 40, just so we're clear. That's a long time ago.
No, I don't know if I had YouTube when I was 18. Maybe, I don't know. But you know what I mean? Just like as far as learning how to do things, I was very much a self-learner. I'd research a lot of stuff on the internet, check things out. And then I'm just a DIY kind of person. I inherited that from my dad. But yeah, got into construction, kind of figured that out. Did pretty well all the way up until the economy crashed in 2007, 2008. And my business crashed really hard. We were mountains in debt, tax debt, personal debt. We lost our house. We lost our cars. We, had about $60,000 of debt over our heads. When we had our firstborn daughter at the same time, and we had no cash to do that, no health insurance either, because I was self-employed. So we put it on a Nordstrom credit card, her birth, for.
You can do that?
Oh, apparently you can.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a credit card,
Next time I need a doctor, I'm bringing my JCPenney card with me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, can you put our daughter on this credit card, please? So it was like 25% interest rate or something ridiculous. And just, we got ourselves so financially upside down. Literally we went on food stamps, at that point in time, found this little dump of a place that I traded rent. The landlord was so cool. He basically traded my labor for rent for like 6 months. So I like replaced his roof and I remodeled the garage and I like did all these things. Cool. And that honestly saved us in a pretty big way. Because it was right at the time when the industry was just, the economy was totally crashing hard. And then that's when I went out and got like my first actual corporate job at that point.
And what was that?
That was a national sales manager for a company called Tiger Stop that sold single axis CNC machines. And like, they're basically like motorized fences for chop saws. And I actually, while I was there, I invented a tool and sold it to the construction industry, did the whole trade show circuit, traveled around everywhere.
Wow. What was the tool?
It's a tool called Saw Gear. If you ever want to see some really embarrassing videos on YouTube, you can just go search up like intro to Saw Gear and you'll see very young version of Brandon, selling this tool that we invented. And it just basically, you punch in numbers on here, the fence automatically goes and you put a piece of wood up there and you chop it. And it's like accurate to, 256th of an inch. It's like super accurate. And we sold the pants off of that to the construction industry for a period of time. Yeah.
That is super cool. I have never done it, but I've always been interested in researching the history and the impact of tools on industry, because it doesn't matter what industry you look at your phone. your phone is the size it is because of the tools that are able to create something that small. Without those tools, it can do that kind of work. So everything is based on tools. It's such an interesting. Is there a book out there, The History of Tools? I need to read it. I'm interested.
Yeah,
if
I
there
know
isn't, somebody should write one.
Yeah. It is. It's pretty profound.
Super fascinating. What was your dad doing during this whole time? Like, he's still just working, him in a van?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was owning, he was running his window cleaning business, and it was him and maybe a helper. And he did that all the way up into 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many years was he open? Like, what year did he start? Did you say 70
78.
78? That's a lot. Okay. That's awesome.
Yep. 78 to 2012.
12. Yeah. Wow. Just Windows.
Just Windows.
It's incredible.
just Windows. That's
incredible.
It. And he was the guy on the tools and climbing up and down 3-story ladders and cleaning outside of these windows at some of these little mini McMansion places. And
I love it.
He had original customers too that stayed with him all the way from 1978, and then he did like their kids' houses and then their grandkids' houses. I mean, it's really pretty epic as far as like his whole journey of kind of going through that.
And what it takes to keep a customer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just keeping a customer in and of itself is a feat. Keeping it for that long, hell, just keeping it from one transaction to another.
Yeah, that's right. I know. And that was honestly one of the best educations that I got from my dad, is that, he never cultivated a skill set or even had a desire to grow beyond the one-man operation. It fit his why, and it, kind of carried him through during that time period. But he just was the consummate servant. He just absolutely loved customers and loved the homeowner, his clients. And that translated and really resonated with me and stuck with me, my entire adult life, is just how much he obsessed over that. And so that was, awesome dad. Just a really, really cool father figure.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds really great.
So 2012, he was diagnosed with heart disease. So he pretty much at that time had no savings, no retirement. And the doctor told him, first of all, he's doing fine. But the doctor told him at that time that he couldn't work physically anymore. So he has scar tissue on his heart. He actually was low cholesterol, low blood pressure, just really kind of the epitome of health, working, physically for so many years. But he just kind of has this genetic thing that, and honestly, a propensity for anxiety, A-type personality individual, cleaning transparent pieces of glass for 30 some years. He just kind of like lent him to be like really, really detail focused. And
it's so funny you say that, because we didn't even touch on that. Cleaning glass is a challenge. I mean, we're thinking like this is no big deal. I'd pay somebody to clean glass myself.
Yeah, it's true.
Curious about the tools of the trade here. Did he use a microfiber? Was it a cotton rag? Did he use newspaper? What was the secret? Squeegee?
No, it's just basically a mop, a T-bar handle with a microfiber sleeve on it, and Dawn dishwashing detergent or TSP, and hot water, and a sponge and a squeegee. That's literally like all of our tools that we had. So anyways, 2012, that whole thing happened. And, we sat down as a family, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like a Walmart greeter. Like, I don't have any other skills. I don't know what else I can do. And at the time, I had quit my corporate job because I was traveling an insane amount. And I actually started up like a business doing like graphic design and marketing stuff, kind of as like a freelance hustler kind of gig. And the timing just worked out perfectly to where I just said, Dad, I'll buy the business from you. Like, I'll come back into the business. It was doing about $8,000 a month at the time. And I just said, I'll come back in. I'll pay you $3,000 a month for life. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, you and Mom will be taken care of. I'll buy the business. I'll grow it, make sure that you guys are okay. And, and hadn't done the math really to know kind of what that would look like, but kind of committed to it. And then that's what started me picking up All Clean window service in 2012. And then from there, it was like, let's grow this thing.
And All Clean was a competitor of your dad's?
No, All Clean was his
business. Was your dad's?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All Clean window service. Yeah.
And so what was all right, so you got it now, it's yours.
Yes.
Talk me through this. What is your first steps? I mean, you go clean windows, obviously. You drive them.
Go clean windows. So it was so cool because the corporate world, that corporate job taught me the value of like teams and systems and kind of opened my eyes to a different type of business and how a larger company works. Very valuable. I was fresh off of a business that totally failed. So I had a good understanding of what not to do, very well versed in what not to do because of some of those things. But really just kind of set out to grow the business. One of the biggest opportunities that I kind of saw was exterior cleaning, like doing pressure washing and soft washing and roof cleaning and vinyl cleaning. And like we did the interior stuff really well, but like all these customers that we had, like they needed their houses washed and their gutters cleaned and their roof washed and their driveway pressure washed. And so that was kind of part of my growth strategy at the beginning.
I like that a lot. I like just taking your existing client base and expanding services. That's really smart. I like that.
Yeah, because we're only doing windows. That's all that my dad ever did. So we were able to, pretty much is like I was able to double revenue just from that one single thing alone.
What was the biggest driver? Was there any one thing that stood out? Like, was it house washing? Was it pavement? Their driveway? What was there one thing, or was it just a bunch of little things that?
It's basically what's called soft washing, which is cleaning without a pressure washer. So we use garden hose pressure. We spray a solution of basically a really mild detergent along with like a bleach component and spray down the siding of homes, the roofs of homes, rinse it off. And then because sodium hypochlorite is literally made from running electricity through salt and water, it like biodegrades back into salt and water. So it's pretty eco-friendly as far as that side of it goes. And so that was the main driver. We just positioned it from a marketing perspective to be like, oh, you're still pressure washing? Like, why? That's so antiquated. Like, you should be soft washing. This is, biodegradable soap solutions and 12-volt battery operated pumps, no noisy gas engines, no possibility for damage from high pressure water.
You're not going to destroy your house. And
yeah. And so we rebranded the company to All Clean Soft Wash, and decided to kind of start growing from there. And we grew a tremendous amount over the course of the next few years.
That is really impressive. So you stayed in the space, you stayed in residential, or did you think at all to move into the commercial space?
We did stay a lot in residential. We actually ended up moving a lot into facilities, multifamily, commercial, industrial, even government buildings. Probably we turned to about 70% residential and 30% commercial to some extent. And commercial like defines that whole envelope of
even multifamily.
Oh yeah. We did a lot of multifamily.
But is that part of the commercial, or do you still consider that residential?
I consider that part of the commercial. Oh, yeah, because they're part of the commercial. Because it's like $60,000 projects, going and cleaning all these, 300 units in an apartment community, type of a deal. So there was a lot on that side too that we did.
I remember when I first moved to New York City, I grew up in Vermont. So I grew up in a very rural, we had one high rise in my town, and it was a really weird kind of thing. And to this day, I've never even been inside it. So I don't even know what it looks like. But residential housekeeping was a geographical challenge because you would have to, we would sit there with maps on the wall, be like, all right, if you go this way and you map it out, like, you're literally using a protractor and a ruler going, all right, so that's 8 miles. And you know what I mean? Because you have to account for gas and the time, how long does it take to travel from one? Can you do 4 houses today or 2 based on travel time? Because it was a big deal.
Sure.
And so when you grow up in that space and in that mindset of travel, you have to account for all this distance between jobs. And I come to New York City and I meet the first housekeeper I meet cleans the entire building and she does every 2 weeks, and she's busy 7, you know what I mean? Like she's busy 7 days a
Right.
week because there's so many units, and she doesn't have any other accounts. This one's enough. Like, and it blew me away. I was like, oh, you can make a living just from one building. You know, you throw her an apartment, and she never has to leave. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, it'd be kind of terrifying to have all your eggs in one single basket. It's basically,
that's fair.
In some way, kind of a glorified job, but
that
could be tricky.
I have a lot of friends, a lot of people who've been on the show who live and work in New York City, and they do residential cleaning, and they just do these high rises, and
right,
you know, there might be 500-600 units, and they might only have 15. You know, so their job is just keep knocking on doors. You know, they're just trying to get higher up the stairwell. You know.
Yeah, 100%. No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
So we went, you know, we kind of went through this growth path, and there's a few things that I kind of discovered along the way that made a huge difference in my mindset shift. You know, I've been so used to like the DIY death trap, I'll call it, you know, where, you know, my dad he wasn't in a death trap per se, but it's like, because he was the one that knew how to do it, his company had a bus factor of 1. If one person metaphorically got hit by a bus, or actually got hit by a bus, like the company ceases to exist.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of witnessing that terrified me to the thought of not wanting to do the same thing. Like I wanted to be replaceable. I wanted to be a semi-absentee owner. I wanted to build a team. And so from 2012 to 2018, went from 0 employees to 70 employees.
Wow.
And we had, you know, 13 window cleaning vans. We had, you know, 11.
Holy moly, you upped the game.
Yeah. So we grew a lot. And, you know, it was mostly because of understanding that you have to build a team. You know, Steve Jobs says, I hire smart people so that they tell me what to do, not so that I tell them what to do. And so, you know, I made every single possible mistake in the book, as far as, you know, I think anyone would look at, as far as some of the choices that I made in growing this business. But when I started like honing in the right team members and putting those people in the right seat, that's where everything really changed. And then really focusing on systems, you know, to be able to just make sure that like things were, you know, things could actually sustainably scale without all crumbling down like a house of cards. So yeah, man, it was a crazy journey. It was definitely a crazy journey.
It sounds fantastic. And I just love how you just went about it systematically. You just went, okay, all right, this is what we're currently doing. Well, how can we make this even a little bit more?
Right.
And then a little bit more. And then how can I back out of it? And then how can we put a system in place to make sure it doesn't fall in on itself? It's amazing how many people I meet who have been in business for a long time, and, you know, just like, hey, how does this all work? And they really can't, you know what I mean? Like they don't have it written down. They don't have it thought out. They've just been plugging away for a long time, just doing it. Like, well, you can get away with that, just like you're saying, except that one day when you get hit by the proverbial bus.
Yeah.
And, well,
yeah. And I think one of the things that I love doing is I kind of became obsessed with was documenting every single thing that I did on a day-to-day basis. So when I bought the business for my dad, he had a little black book with all of his contacts. He had a paper calendar binder with all this stuff.
I love this guy, by the way. Just love him.
I do too, by the way.
Just so great.
But we went through, you know, I asked him like, you know, okay, how do you bid these jobs? How do you know how to bid a job? And he'd be like, well, I just look at the house and I think about how long it's going to take me. And then I like multiply that by, I'm like, okay, that's great. How long do you know how long it's going to take you? You know, cause he could literally be like this and be like, oh yeah, that's
sure.
going to be, you know, $585. And I'm like, how though? And sure enough, every single time he did it, we would always like be dead on for time. And so I had to extract all the information out of my dad's head, because he also had like, oh yeah, that's Nancy's and her house key code is such and such. And she puts her key underneath of this mat. And this customer, you know, has a dog that can't be let out. And the dog's name is, you know, Roger. And it's like all these things that he had in his brain. And it forced me to have to like extract all that information out. And so I just became obsessed with like documenting any thought that popped into my head. And, you know, when I would train employees, I'd give them like my cell phone camera. And I'd say, okay, I want you to just like record me while I train you. And then I'd like show how to do all this stuff while they're recording it. And then like when we hired new employees, I just had them watch those recordings. So I wouldn't have to like
Smart.
say it every single time, you know?
Yeah.
So like all of those little steps, I just became really obsessed with just, you know, having to where no one had to come ask me a question. And it was a very, very freeing feeling, you know. In 2018, like I literally would come into the shop and there'd be, you know, 3, 4 people rummaging around on the shelves and they like look at me and they're like, "Oh, can I help you?" Like, okay, all right, I like this. I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. Just, you know, wanted to go talk to Steve in the office." And they're like, "Oh, okay. You know, anything you need though, you know, like like it
Don't
just
even know who you are.
don't know who I am." And I had met them before. And that was just a really, really freeing feeling to be able to not be the bottleneck in your business, you know, which
Were
is
you able to systemize the bidding process to where
oh
you
yeah.
don't have to have a guess or experience in it? You could just like have a wheel and you spin it and it's this many windows times this many, whatever.
Yes, 100%.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for
That's
you.
that's some of the very, very first things that we did was break everything down into unit pricing.
Very nice.
Because trying to guess how long something takes is completely subjective. And when new salespeople came in, so we do pain counts. We'd have a factor for number of stories. We would have, you know, we had like a whole sheet
Good
that,
for you.
you know, we called it like the 11-year-old test. If I could have my 11-year-old go in and like follow the math and walk around a house, you know, we leveraged Google Earth that you can actually like draw perimeters around houses from a Google Earth satellite view, and you could like, you know, multiply exactly how much siding there is by square foot and how much roof there
Very
is by
cool.
square foot, and multiply the pitch and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, big game changer.
That is really smart. You know, there's something interesting about that. I don't know if you found this in your when you were going through it, but there's a company in Texas, a roofing company. I've talked about them a few times because I'm so impressed by them. They're called White Brothers Roofing.
Huh.
And it's the same thing where you're saying where they took over the business for their dad, and their dad was the same way where he would always just, you know, how much would it cost to replace my roof? And he'd go, well, I'll meet you there and I'll tell you, you
Yeah.
know. And he'd
Right.
have to
Yeah.
go and he'd have to look and calculate in his head and, you know, do the whole thumb thing. And what happened through that process is what the sons realized taking over their dad's business is that the customers never felt good about doing business with you because they always felt like you were sizing them up.
Mm.
Because what kind of neighborhood do we live in? That's going to dictate how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
so
true.
they figured out a way to do just what you did, where they just said, "Here, it's on a widget, whatever they created," and it was like, "You tell me, what do you want this replaced? Do you want the you know the lead flashing? Do you want the copper flashing? Right? Like you plug, and here's the price." And it gave it this transparency that they didn't
Yeah.
expect, like this transparency to the customer, and they became the most trusted customer, or vendor, which of course means they became the largest roofing contractor in that area. I'm sure you found the same thing, right? Once you were able to streamline it.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it was the exact same, you know, for us as well. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
they see you walking around with the measuring wheel and they see you like actually following a process and you can show them how it is, makes a huge deal. Also makes a big deal for commercial too. You know, we were able to get some big commercial accounts because we had a pricing matrix that we could take, you know, number of units in an apartment community and multiply by number of doors, by square footage, by, you know, stories and all of that. And it could spit out. And we would get requests for some of these property management companies where they have 250 apartment communities. And they would say, here's the addresses. And we could literally go hire a full-time VA from the Philippines to go in and just like measure everything out on Google Earth and put out a pricing matrix based upon our standard pricing, and like send them back the same Excel file with like their budget for the entire year for every one of our services we offered.
Very
And
cool.
that just like that was really important to property managers to be able to quickly have, you know, access to that without having to, you know, go visit every single one and, you know, and take forever to get that quote back. We could turn it around pretty quickly.
And think about your competition, right? Like if somebody's like, "Hey, we need 3 quotes," and your quote comes back like that, and they're still waiting a month for the other two, you're like, "Can we just go with this guy? I mean, what are we doing? We didn't even got quotes
So
for him yet."
one of the cool things that we did was we would go on to like Data Axle and we would farm lists of every commercial building in our service area. and we would have a VA go on and put together these budgets and put together proposals, just based with, going onto Google Earth or going into publicly available, records like apartments.com, number of units, all that kind of stuff. And they would send off $250,000 worth of unsolicited proposals every single week that, would just fire off to these property managers. And we would do an insane amount of business from those.
Really?
Yeah. So if you can simplify the bidding process to where you can have someone that can, in an automated way, follow that process and put together proposals. You could do this in the EVS, hands down.
I love this. Like, they weren't even looking for you. You just went and found them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
And you can do follow-up sequences. And then your director of commercial services can pretty much just go and just work on relationships and follow-ups and not have to spend so much time, putting together all the numbers and calculating everything. So it's a way to have them be in their more productive, money revenue generating times instead of just the manual data calculation stuff. They can just be focused on the relationship side. So it's a pretty big game changer.
That's really, really great. So let's fast forward, because you're now the CEO of Conqueror.
Yeah.
What's Conqueror?
What's Conquer? So Conquer actually started in 2018. I started getting into a lot of coaching, being asked to speak at different industry events, and started to have a lot of people ask me for help. I was very transparent on Facebook and social media. I do these little silly videos called Happy System Saturday, where I just talk about a system that I had in my company, and had a lot of people say, "Hey, can you help me put my, your systems in place in my business?" So right about 2018, 2019, I founded Conquer as a way to kind of be the vehicle for coaching and business systems that I wish my, cleaning company had when I was growing it. So we basically took all of our systems that we had and put it into a format to where people could just grab them, download them, and implement them, and then provide coaching from service business owners that actually own their own 7 and 8 figure home service business. And they could coach, clients and work with groups and provide accountability, community, and clarity. So that was that's kind of the start of it in 2019. We have 24 certified coaches now that are working with our clients.
That is amazing. Are you still doing the window cleaning operation?
No, I sold the exterior cleaning business in 2018, right about the same time that I pivoted into this space. But one of the things recently that I just did this year was started a project called Map to a Million. So I've always wanted to get back into a service business. So this January, I started a brand new service business in an industry I have no experience in, and documented the whole process of building that from zero to a 7-figure fully automated business that can run without me. And I documented it in a YouTube series called Map to a Million. And there's 16 episodes out there, and we went from zero to $100,000 a month in 4 months. And we did our first million this year, and literally document step by step exactly how to build a service business from scratch. If you just take the systems and just plug them into a business.
It's so impressive.
Yeah. So I'm back in the service business ownership game right now. And
so what is the service that you're doing now?
The service is a company called Wise Coatings, and it's actually in the painting and coatings industry. So we do garage floor coatings as kind of like a niche. And we started that in January.
I know somebody in Vermont who needs you.
Is that right?
Yes, I have a buddy who's building a garage. All he's talking about is putting a coating on the floor.
Yeah, so we actually have this past so we were experiencing a ton of success with it in our Portland, Oregon market. And then we actually started expanding out. So we actually have 8 locations across the US, and we're all the way from Orlando to Maryland to Texas and Arkansas, Missouri. We're kind of all over the place now.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, so it's almost like you have this clear path of taking this DIY kind of mentality that it seems like your dad gave you. Like, that's how he did everything. And then you're able to just go, oh, wait a minute, how can I just keep doing this and backtrack? And so as I come up with a new system, I just create the system that, create, sell, repeat, create, sell, repeat.
Right.
And it's, what a great idea. What a great, very interesting. You're like a natural born educator.
Wow, I appreciate that, man.
It's really impressive.
One thing I tell people all the time is that if you can become an expert at teaching and delegating, you can have any size business that you want. Like, I feel like the teaching component is such a powerful part, because if you're going to scale, you have to teach new team members how to do a role in your company. And you have to have really clear definitions. You have to have really clear job descriptions and offer letters and checklists and a really robust training and teaching program that like gets them up to speed quickly. Especially like with our hiring economy, where there's, lots of churn rates and of employees, and, it's just difficulty in keeping people and finding people. It becomes even more critical to be able to have a system where you bring a new employee in and they can be up to speed very quickly without you as the owner having to, spend all the time teaching them. So that also means getting good trainers and getting people even better than you at the teaching side, and just being able to kind of delegate those, those aspects of the business off. It's too much for one owner to do,
Yeah, no question. And I also, it's funny. When I was a kid, I wish I was homeschooled, now that I think about it. when I was a kid,
you wouldn't have been in sports. What are you talking
that's
about?
true. That's fair. I wasn't very good at sports anyway. But when I was a kid, I took one of those tests in 8th or 9th grade, and it's kind of like a how do you learn test. And it turns out that I'm a hands-on learner. And when I asked what that meant, because I was 14, 15, what the heck do I know? They told me construction work. Like, they're like, that's, you're destined for this, for construction. What I didn't know, and it took me forever to figure out, and it sounds like you learned pretty early on, way earlier than I did, that is, hands-on learning really just means having the ability to explain. If you know it enough to be able to explain it, that's hands-on learning. Some people don't even have to experience. Some people don't have to put things together to be able to explain it to you. I do. Sounds like you do too. Right? Like, and that's the magic that you're able to, that's why you're able to build such great systems that are easily repeatable, rinse, repeat, because you're a hands-on learner. I dare say.
Really, really, really well said, Ralph. And that's why you're so gifted at creating those systems, and you're a teacher and educator as well. I mean, like, I've seen your stuff, and it's very, very powerful.
No, I appreciate that.
It collapses time. And I think that's like one of the biggest epiphanies that I've had as of late, in the last, like 5 years of my career and kind of like growing as an entrepreneur, is people think too much in terms of money. But the wealthy and the very highly successful people, they think of collapsing time. So like, one person may be like, I want to make $1 million. And then they're like, oh, okay, $100,000 a year, 10 years, I'll make $1 million. Wealthy people are like, how do I collapse time and make that same million, but make it in like a day or like a week, or like a month? Like, how do you collapse time? And really, the whole secret to collapsing time is investing in things that save you time, period. Whether that's systems, documents, resources, coaching, teams, all of those things help you collapse time, because, time is very, very finite. It's the one single currency that we spend every single day, whether we want to or not. Like why people say time is money. That's like so patently false, because time is infinitely more valuable than money. But yet the DIY methodology of like trying to, go and figure things out, like, oh, I got nights, I got weekends, I can like DIY it. That just takes so much longer time, which is dumb, because we're like saving money and not saving time, when it should be actually the opposite. We should be investing money to save time. And that's what wealthy and successful people do. And that was like a moment for me, when like I finally connected those dots. And that's when the business, kind of took off like a rocket ship, was when I was like, oh yeah, be an investor. Don't be a DIY kind of person.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I think that one of the key things that I just keep hearing over and over from you is how you're able to both, just kind of become an expert at something, like be able to figure something out, which is really fun. But it's even more fun to be able to watch somebody else benefit from you figuring it out, right? Like it's one thing to become a doctor. It's another thing to watch somebody get out of a, come out of a trauma and be able, not that we're doctor. I'm not saying that you're equivalent to somebody, but it's kind of the same thing. Like somebody gets injured and then all of a sudden you see that they're fine and you helped. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's interesting because wealth is directly tied to value creation. So like that doctor that you mentioned, okay, he makes $400,000 a year or whatever he makes because he provides an incredible amount of value to one single person at a time. And then like he gets a cap of how much value he can provide, and he'll never make more than that because he provides value to a finite. He only has so many hours of the day.
That's right. That's right.
But then you find someone that creates a medical device that provides value to 100 million people.
All of a sudden,
the wealth is instantaneously tied to that, and it's not tied to time. And it's not because it's like just product versus services. Like you can scale services and you can provide services in mass to people, but it's like until you break that gap between you being the biggest bottleneck in your business or your position or whatever that is, and thinking, how can you add value to more people? That's really kind of where the wealth and the success kind of comes from, is just that value creation. And it's just like, it's just such a fascinating thing to just sit back and just kind of dwell and it can completely change your entire business model when you try to solve the problem for adding value to more people. And then the money follows. It just does.
I like that too. Putting value first, putting people first.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What is systems nerd? Is that like your moniker or is that I love it.
Is that on a sheet somewhere? I'm first. I totally geek out over systems. I'm really into all things automation and technology, and
so you are the systems nerd.
I am a systems nerd. Yeah, I geek out over stuff like that. Like when I was in my window cleaning space and my exterior cleaning space, and I was the one doing the work, all I saw was dirty buildings. That's it. That's like all my eye would be drawn to. It's just like, right. Oh man, and you're probably the same thing when you go into some places, like you just have that DNA wired into you. And I still do that. But I became obsessed more with like, company systems and processes and workflows and documentation on things when I started to realize that I made the most amount of money for my business when I just sat down in front of the computer and just focused on creating tools that helped my team. And that's, at the end of the day, kind of what a system is just tools, documented process that are just designed to help your team be more successful in their position without like you needing to inject time into it. And the more time that I invested in just systems and creating them and obsessing over it and nerding out over it, the more successful the business kind of became because of that. So yeah, it's just a self-designated goofy term that I've given.
No, I like it. Listen, I call myself the housekeeper. So
yeah, I love it. Well, I still loved being on the plane, sitting next to someone, and they're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a glass clarification engineer. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. Tell me about that. What does that mean? I'm like, well, I get Dawn dishwashing detergent and I dip it in the bucket and then I like squeegee it. Like, oh, it's a window washer? Yeah, that's what I said.
That's a different way to use the word clarification now, isn't it?
Yeah. It sounds really sweet though.
It sounds really great. I always stump people as I'm sitting there like, oh, I'm a housekeeper. They're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I love that. I love doing it.
Yeah. Too funny. A moniker I've held for a long time, reluctantly at first, admittedly, but I've come to embrace it. So what's next for you? What's all these great things? I mean, what's the next big thing that's on Mr. Brandon Vaughn's plate?
Yeah, Conquer is my thing.
Yeah, so that's it.
This is it. I mean, Wise Coatings is an amazing adventure. I have an amazing team that's really leading the initiative on that. I'm excited about that for sure. But Conquer, we're on pace to double this year. And so, we're going to go from 24 certified coaches to 50 certified coaches, and just continue kind of helping home service business owners just find balanced entrepreneurial life through systems and coaching. That's like our mission and our vision.
Love it.
Yeah. So we're a huge push for family first. Part of one of the reasons why it's so difficult to arrange time is, I'm very cautious of my calendar, like you are too, to make sure that you're like protecting the most important things in life. And it's not business, it's family. So we are really obsessed over that.
It's the reason that we are entrepreneurs.
100%.
The reason I'm in business for myself is because I want to have my own freedom of my own time.
Yeah. And it's sad. I mean, it literally crushes me when I see entrepreneurs where that's their original goal in life when they first got started, and why they made that whole crazy journey of jumping off a cliff and building the plane on the way down is that pursuit of freedom and having more time freedom. But then they, end up just turning into a slave to their business, and they're working more hours than they ever did for less money than they ever did. And I just hate that. That's why I'm a big fan of Mike Michalowicz. Him and I have shared passions. His statement is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty from a time and a money perspective. And I'm a big
fan of Mr. Michalowicz. I need to get him to speak for us over in New York.
Oh man, I'll intro you.
I would love to have him come speak for the New York City chapter of the National Speakers Association. I've read every one of his books. I've done this whole pumpkin plan. I've done this whole profits first analysis. His latest book, Get Different, is just simply one of the greatest that
it's amazing
that I've read. I've been following, he's like, I had a buddy, and this is in Get Different, send a book out to, 10 books a week. I'm like, I'm on it,
So I interviewed him. One of the cool things he did on one of his marketing campaigns, he said, he sent an email where I said, this is the world's first disappearing ink email. Click below and drag down to reveal the hidden message. And so then when, it's like, it was all white text on a white background, like in the email. And then when you highlight it, it's blue, right? But then you can actually see the white. And like, he's such a marketing genius. And I'm obsessed with anything marketing, and man, he's got it so dialed in.
It's very fun. It's very, very fun. I really enjoy it too. Anyway, this has been really fun. I really appreciate you taking the time with me and telling me all your stories, because there's nothing better. There's nothing better than people who have figured it out. There's nothing better than people who are just willing to even try to figure it out. Even if you don't figure it out, just keep trying, just keep getting up in the morning.
I appreciate that, man. I definitely have not figured it all out by any means.
Me neither.
Still every day I like to level up, and it's honestly why I like to come and hang out with successful entrepreneurs like yourself as well. And iron sharpens iron. So
no question.
Appreciate you having me on, Ralph.
Awesome. These conversations don't have to happen just on a podcast or in an interview style. I mean, I had these conversations all the time. Sometimes I'm having conversations with people and I'm like, God, I wish we were recording this, because
that's right.
I just wish people could hear this genius. It's so great. This guy, this girl, they're just so passionate and so full of life and ideas, and it's so great. I got to tell you, I just am happy to be surrounded by people like yourself. It's been really, really rewarding. So
thank you so much. Appreciate that, Ralph. It means a lot.
How do people get a hold of you? If somebody wants to find one of your coaches, somebody needs some help, somebody needs some coding for their garage.
just start going down the list, huh? Well,
you might know a window cleaner. How do people reach out? What's the best way to engage?
If people want to learn more about kind of our Conquer program and our mastermind group, it's a few hundred members strong now, is go.conquernow.com. Go.conquernow.com. And little informational page on there, little cheesy video of myself talking about the program. But it's an application process. Not everyone who applies gets in, but it definitely starts there, and you meet a coach meets you, both get the thumbs up before you're ever even onboarded into the program. You have to commit to anything. So it's great just to apply to just learn a little bit more about the program.
Yeah, that's great. And what about the coding, wise coding.
Yeah, wisecodings.com.
Why is it called Wise?
I have a whole episode on YouTube dedicated to branding and why I picked that name. So I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger. So you have some homework to go check out the Map to a Million YouTube channel where I dive into that.
I love the name, by the way, Map to a Million. Did you watch what was it on Discovery? The Undercover Billionaire?
Oh yeah, man. I love shows like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
I love shows like that. Yeah.
I'm a huge Grant Cardone fan,
so
it was super
Profit
fun.
First. I'm a huge fan of Lemonis and Marcus Lemonis or not Profit First, The Prophet. Marcus Lemonis.
Profit First is Michalowicz.
Yes, I'm getting those two mixed up. Yeah,
the Prophet. Get those 5 accounts in line.
Yeah, Marcus Lemonis. And then I also love watching. Oh shoot, what's that other show? I guess it is Undercover Boss. It's not Undercover Billionaire, but just all those shows like that. I love kind of seeing entrepreneurs getting those startups from zero.
Oh, me too. I love one of my favorite. I know we're over time, but I just want to tell you one of my favorite stories is not actually about an entrepreneur, but about the, when you're trying to, it's a story about the Burger King CEO, and I don't even know if he's still the CEO of Burger King, but if he is, this guy gets a job at Burger King in finance right out of college. He goes to work for Burger King corporate right out of college. Never worked in a Burger King franchise. Just goes to work for Burger King. Becomes the CFO. The CEO job is coming up available, and he wants to become the CEO. And he learns that he's unable to because he doesn't qualify. Because you can't be the CEO. They have a rule in their bylaws. You can't become the CEO of Burger King unless you have worked in a franchise. And he never has. So imagine this guy, he's the CFO. So he's been at Burger King for 20 years at this point. He decides to quit his job, take his wife, his family, and become a manager at a Burger King, to become a district manager at a franchise Burger King, and then works his way up there, becomes the CEO of Burger King.
That is cool.
So when you're watching like the Undercover Boss and you're seeing them in the, going in the trenches and they're undercover and they're wearing a terrible wig and they're like,
right.
Like every time I see that show, and I love it too, I think of that guy. I think about
that's funny.
What it must have been like for him to have never even worked at a Burger King before.
Wow. Yeah.
To be slinging a burger, to be learning about the drawer full of buns, to be learning, I worked at Burger King as a kid, so I know. learning how to run the conveyor, and all this stuff. I mean, it must just have been mind-blowing. Like imagine having the tenacity to quit your corporate job, to go to work at a fast food place, knowing in your heart this is the only way to win, and you're going to do anything it takes. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Did he become CEO then?
He became
CEO.
Actually make it? He became the CEO. I mean, the Star Spangled Banner should be playing right now. That's
pretty crazy, man.
It's amazing. Wow. How do you not get fired up from that story, right? I mean, Housekeepers podcast. This has been awesome. If you're not motivated, if you're not fired up to go out and grab yourself a squeegee, then I don't know what show you've been listening to, because goodness gracious. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
For having me, Ralph. Me too, man. It was a blast, but it was really cool.
Awesome. As I said, please, if you have a manager, a housekeeping manager, if you are interested in becoming a housekeeping manager, if you are a housekeeping manager, but they've not given you any training. They said on-the-job training is all you're going to get. There's some old schedules and old program manuals in there that somebody might have had from decades ago. And that's what all the resources you're going to get in your EVS department. Demand education. You don't have to attend the Housekeeping Leadership Academy. You should, of course. You don't have to. Just demand better than that. You deserve better than that. That's it. Housekeepers podcast. We will see you guys later. Mr. Brandon